Ireland has more native dog breeds than many countries its size. A wolfhound, two setters, four terriers, a hound, and a spaniel found almost nowhere else on Earth. And nearly all of them came within a generation or two of disappearing completely. This is the story of Ireland's native dogs, how they were nearly lost, and what it took to save the ones that made it. Dogs of the Irish Wolfhound's general type appear in Irish law tracts, more than 1,000 years old. The Brehon laws, Ireland's native legal system, specify penalties for injuring or stealing certain classes of hound. Proof these animals carried real economic and social weight, long before anyone wrote sentimental poetry about them. By the medieval period, they'd become genuine diplomatic currency, requested by name in continental correspondence. Ireland had built, without trying, an internationally recognized product. Then the wolves went extinct, and more importantly, so did the political structure sustaining the hounds. As Gaelic lordships were broken up under English conquest, especially after the flight of the Earls in 1607, the great households that bred them stopped existing. No court, no kennel. It's a pattern worth flagging early because it repeats through this whole story. Native Irish breeds rarely declined because people stopped wanting dogs. They declined because the infrastructure behind specific bloodlines was dismantled along with everything else. By the 1830s, Graham found only scraps, dogs of roughly the right type, diluted through generations of amateur crossbreeding with deerhound and mastiff. He spent decades reconstructing something that could plausibly carry the name. Whether today's wolfhound is a true continuous line or a careful Victorian recreation is genuinely disputed. Either way, the dog you see at a show now is as much a monument to 19th century reconstruction as to ancient Ireland. Ask most people to picture an Irish dog, and they'll describe a setter before they think of a wolfhound. Which makes it strange that the breed's actual history gets skipped so often. The Irish setter, the solid red one, was developed through the 1700s and 1800s by Anglo-Irish sporting estates crossing native Irish land spaniels and setters with English and Gaelic pointing types, refined for the specific job of locating game birds at distance across open ground. The vivid mahogany coat wasn't an early feature. It was bred in deliberately during the 19th century, partly for visibility in the field, and partly, by that point, because a bold, distinctly coloured Irish dog suited the same nationalist branding instinct that was reshaping the terriers. Less well known is the Irish red and white setter, which actually predates the solid red version, and was, for a long time, the more common of the two. It nearly disappeared entirely in the 20th century, edged out by its flashier red cousin, and survived only because a small number of breeders in the mid-1900s tracked down the last remaining working lines and rebuilt the breed almost from scratch. It's a smaller-scale rerun of the Wolfhound story. A working type nearly lost not through persecution, but through simple fashion. Saved at the last minute by people willing to do the unglamorous work of finding what was left. The Wolfhound got the poetry, the setters got the sporting estates, Ireland's terriers got the work, and almost none of the credit until very late. These were farm dogs, bred on small holdings to go down a hole after fox or badger and kill vermin without ceremony. Nobody with the means to write history was paying attention to what a tenant farmer's ratting dog was doing, so these types existed for generations before anyone formalized them. That changed fast once the kennel club system reached Ireland, and it happened to collide with the Gaelic revival, the same cultural wave that pushed the Irish language and Gaelic games back into public life as acts of national self-assertion under British rule. The Irish Terrier was first off the mark, standardized in 1879, and nicknamed the Daredevil for its temperament. It's a plausible descendant of a broader black and tan terrier type, once common across Ireland and Britain, before breeds were split apart by kennel club taxonomy, meaning the Irish Terrier may really just be the version that happened to get claimed and named first. The Kerry Blue Terrier came out of the mountains of County Kerry, a genuine all-purpose farm dog used for herding, ratting and guarding, with a coat that fades from black to blue-grey with age. It picked up outsized political symbolism in the early 20th century when Michael Collins reportedly kept one, and the breed became loosely associated with Irish republicanism during the fight for independence. A working dog turned, almost by accident, into a nationalist mascot. The soft-coated Wheaton Terrier is likely the oldest of the group in general form, a farm all-rounder whose soft, silky coat sets it apart from its wire-coated cousins. It stayed almost entirely a local working animal, largely undocumented until the 1930s, and wasn't formally recognized until 1937, decades after its flashier relatives had already gone international. The Glen of Imal Terrier is the purest case of accidental preservation on this list. Tucked into an isolated Wicklow Valley, bred for the unglamorous job of turnspit and badger work, it survived precisely because nobody with fashionable breeding ambitions ever bothered crossing it with anything else. Isolation, which usually kills off small populations, is what kept this one intact. Two more are worth naming because they show how thin the margin of survival really was. The Kerry Beagle is possibly Ireland's oldest surviving hound breed, used for centuries in organised stag and hare hunting, with a lineage some trace back to hounds brought by Celtic settlers. It was never standardised for the show ring the way the others were, which meant it also never picked up outside interest, sponsorship or protection. A handful of hunting packs in Munster are effectively all that's kept it going. The Irish Water Spaniel, with its tight-curled coat and bare rat tail, has murkier origins still. Likely old Irish water dog types crossed with poodle-like retrieving breeds brought in through trade. It was refined into close to its modern form by a Dubliner named Justin McCarthy in the mid-1800s, who was cagey enough about his exact methods that they died with him. Unlike the terriers, it never got swept into the nationalist rebranding. It stayed a working gun dog, valued by hunters rather than symbol makers, and remains one of the rarer breeds in the world today. Here's the pattern across all of it. The Irish dogs that survived did so for reasons that had almost nothing to do with the dogs themselves. The Wolfhound survived because a Victorian obsessive decided a nation needed its symbol back. Most of the terriers survived because a cultural revival made distinctly Irish a sellable identity right when kennel clubs were formalizing breeds anyway. The red and white setter survived because a few breeders refused to let a working line vanish quietly. The Kerry Beagle and the Water Spaniel got none of that help, and it shows they're still hanging on by comparatively little, which raises the question worth sitting with. How many other dogs without a Graham, without a revival, without a name someone thought worth saving, simply vanished and left no one to notice?